So the NBA draft lottery was today, and the Detroit Pistons have found themselves as the lucky team and have secured the first overall pick. Unless the Pistons are absolutely moronic and have no idea what they're doing, they'll be selecting Cade Cunningham first overall, which is the obvious and smartest choice. However, for teams that do not have the first pick, drafting the best player becomes a bit more difficult. A team who is definitely in that scenario happens to be my favorite team, the Houston Rockets, and they beat out the odds of losing their pick to OKC to secure the second pick in this year's draft. As a diehard fan of the Rockets, I feel like it's only right to discuss what I believe is best for them to do with their top pick. So that's what I'm going to be talking about in today's video. In today's video, I'm going to be taking a look at the needs of the Houston Rockets and the prospects they should be keeping an eye on to fill those needs, before overall deciding who I believe is the best selection for the Rockets in this year's draft. Before we start, if you're new here and enjoy the video, be sure to subscribe. For more NBA content like this, I'm trying to reach 17,000 subscribers by July, so all support would be greatly appreciated. Anyway, with that being said, let's discuss what the Rockets should do with the second overall pick. Firstly, before we get into the players that the Rockets should consider selecting, we first have to ask ourselves what the Rockets need. To me, there's a couple of empty spots on the Rockets roster that need to be filled, and that is offensive creation and rim protection. One major problem with the Rockets all year long was the lack of a player outside of John Wall to create offense and open up the defense. Down the stretch, if John Wall got cold, the whole Rockets side went cold, and it led to some poor losses that really shouldn't have been L's. However, we did see near the end of the season that the Rockets were able to discover some more guys who are able to create, namely Kevin Porter Jr., but also with the return of Christian Wood, the Rockets' offense was able to flow much nicer, even with Wall on the sidelines at times. But even then, this is still an area that I think needs to be upgraded if the Rockets are trying to be competitive during next season. The Rockets also lack rim protection. Christian Wood and Kelly Olynyk have been great big men offensively this season, but both simply aren't good enough defensively to protect the paint, and it's led the Rockets to get exposed in matchups against players of high caliber inside, guys like Nikola Jokic, Joel Embiid, etc. Jae'Sean Tate does his best as a strong undersized big, but this is still a significant area of concern for the Rockets that I believe is a must fix during this offseason. So, who can the Rockets acquire in this draft class with the second overall pick to fix at least one of these issues or both? One player that the Rockets should definitely consider is Jaylen Green from the G League Ignite team. Green is a fluid scorer and is arguably one of the best offensive players in this draft class. His athleticism is fantastic and allows him to score around the rim in a variety of ways, but it also allows him to excel as a cutter, which I personally think would be very important to have alongside John Wall if he is to remain on the team. Green's scoring touch in general is very good too. He's crafty with his dribble moves and has pulled off many elite moves this past season, such as his underrated step backs. He's also great in the pick and roll as a ball handler, which is a promising sign to place next to Christian Wood. The thing that excites me the most about Green was his ability to excel against professional players. The G League is a legit competition filled to the brim with NBA caliber talent. For him to be as successful as he was leading that team is very promising that he'll be a quality player at the highest level, being the NBA. To me, he checks a lot of the boxes for offensive creation that the Rockets lacked this past season. So I can see him being the leader of the second unit initially and adding offensive depth to that area of the Rockets roster. There are still some question marks around Green, as there are for many rookies, and his fit alongside KPJ could be hard to manage, but he's still a great selection in my eyes if the Rockets do go for him, and he's a player I wouldn't mind at all having on my team. The next player that the Rockets should consider is Evan Mobley out of USC. Mobley is the most well-rounded big man in this draft class and is continuing to follow the trend of the modern center in today's NBA. The best part of Mobley's game is his defense, which, as I've mentioned, is something that the Rockets need. Mobley's combination of length, athleticism, and instincts makes him an exceptional defender in all areas of the floor. He's an elite shot blocker and rim protector, but he also has the footwork and athleticism to switch onto the perimeter, making him versatile and a perfect fit for today's NBA. Once he builds up his strength, he's going to be one of the better defensive players in the league, and that excites me a whole lot as a Rockets fan with the potential of drafting him. Mobley is also a fantastic scorer, averaging nearly 17 points this past season on good shooting splits for a big. Mobley really covers all the areas for the Rockets. He's the rim protector that they need, backed up by his Defensive Player of the Year trophy he won this past season in college, and he's got the skills to add further depth to the Rockets' offense. My only question is how he would fit alongside Christian Wood, as the two players both have a focus on dominating inside the paint rather than outside on the perimeter. If the Rockets know how to figure that out though, Mobley would definitely be near the top of my list for who to select in this year's draft with the number 2 pick. His talent really excites me, and he'd be a damn near perfect fit on this Rockets team. Another player in talks of being a top 3 pick is Jalen Suggs, who had an incredible March Madness tournament. He's a skilled point guard, and his scoring versatility and passing is some of the more exciting things about him and puts him as arguably the top guard in this class. Unfortunately, however, I'm not a huge fan of his fit on the Rockets team. That doesn't take anything away from his talent as a player. He should be a lock for top 4 selection in this draft, but I just don't see him playing large minutes on this team and contributing much if players like John Wall remain on the team. Don't get me wrong, he fits okay, and he does fill the void of offensive creation on this team a fair amount, and will likely learn a lot behind a highly athletic playmaker in John Wall. But personally, I don't view this as being the Rockets' best option for the 2nd pick when guys like Mobley or Green are going to be available. With guys like KPJ on the team also, and John Wall probably sticking around due to his enormous contract, I don't think Suggs is the best option for the Rockets right now. He's still a great prospect though, and I think whatever team drafts him is going to get a huge boost in their play. Finally, the last guy I think the Rockets should consider taking is Josh Giddy, 6'8" guard from Australia, who's just wrapped up a phenomenal season on the professional Australian team, Adelaide 36ers. Now obviously, Giddy isn't exactly the most notorious prospect in this year's draft, and if the Rockets really did want him, I'd highly recommend that they trade up in the draft using the 23rd and 24th pick that they own. A team like Golden State would probably take the bait as they're preparing to jump into contention and don't really need more young pieces with the way Jordan Poole and others are playing. But hey, if the Rockets want to make a high-risk, high-reward decision and select Giddy 2nd overall, then this is the time to take one. Maybe I'm biased because I'm Australian, that's probably it, but I am extremely high on Josh Giddy, and as someone who watched almost every game of his this past season in the NBL, I think that not only will he be a great player in the NBA, but a great fit on the Houston Rockets. Though he is a bit unathletic, Giddy is arguably the most dynamic player in this draft. He's a solid shooter and has great size to power through on drives, but what he's best at is playmaking, and he is above and beyond the best player in this class at that aspect. The passes he was making are on a ridiculously high level, and he's someone I personally view as someone with a ton of upside. The way he's able to control the pace of the game and slow it down or speed it up to his liking is incredible and makes him such a fascinating prospect. LaMelo Ball was great in the NBL last year, and I have to say that Giddy has been just as good in my opinion. Maybe a tad bit worse than Melo, but still definitely lottery pick worthy. What's great about the Rockets situation for Giddy is that there wouldn't be a lot of pressure on him to be great right away either, as with the Rockets having so many good pieces to support him like KPJ, Wood, Wall potentially, etc., he'll be given time to develop and work his way in comfortably. The Rockets need more offensive creation, whether that's putting the ball on the floor and getting up quality shots, or playmaking for others. And in terms of playmaking in this draft, you just can't go past Josh Giddy. So while again, this is a bit of an unorthodox pick, it is certainly one I suggest that the Rockets seriously consider, because Giddy really brings everything to the table that this team needs in terms of offensive creation. So with that being said, who do the Rockets draft with the second pick this year? In my eyes, I think the safest bet is Evan Mobley. Aside from the fact that he may not be a great fit next to Christian Wood, he covers both the things that the Rockets were lacking last season: rim protection and more offensive creation. He has potential to be a franchise cornerstone, and to pair that with such an exciting young talent in Kevin Porter Jr. really makes me happy to be a Rockets fan, so I really want to see that pairing happen. If we select Jaylen Green instead, I wouldn't be mad at all. He's got a lot of potential and has showcased his ability to perform at a high level, at a professional level, so I reckon we'd get some immediate impact out of him. So he is a solid bet too. Jalen Suggs I don't think is the best fit in my eyes, so I'd prefer if we avoid him, and Josh Giddy would be an amazing selection, but with the second pick is probably not very smart, no matter how much I love him as a player. If the Rockets can trade up and select him late in the lottery, that would be the perfect storm. That's really the dream to me for this upcoming draft, drafting Mobley second and Giddy later on if he's still available. Mobley provides the defense and scoring, and Giddy adds the playmaking ability that Houston has lacked a lot outside of John Wall. That's the perfect draft for the Rockets in my eyes. Adding those prospects to a core of Porter Jr., Christian Wood, Jayshawn Tate, KJ Martin and more is just insane and has so much upside. Obviously, missing out on Cade Cunningham is a bit disappointing, but on the surface, this draft is looking absolutely stacked. The top 5 is going to provide some legitimate All-NBA type players, so I have to say I'm extremely eager to see what the Rockets do. But in my opinion, that is what I think we do with the second overall pick. And that will conclude the video. What do you guys think of this? What should the Rockets do with the second overall pick in your opinion? What player do they select? Let me know all your thoughts down in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to drop it a like and subscribe. But with that being said, I am out. Peace.